we have a framework for investing, investment process. We want to make sure that we stick to the process, and I think that's hopefully good advice for anyone. If you've got to work out what you're comfortable investing, how you're comfortable investing, and stick to the process. But part of our process is acknowledging what you were just talking about. As I was saying, a tech stock is going to have potentially more asset light, not as need to do as much capex, not need as many assets to survive, and to deliver really much higher growth than, say, an energy company, where they've got to go and dig a well and deal with all the cyclicality that goes with that. And so the way that we calculate fair value, or that we look at the fair value of an asset, a tech company is probably going to have a much higher ROE than an energy company. And so it's really getting down into the weeds of the stock or the stocks or sectors themselves and going, okay, well, this company not necessarily should be penalised, but maybe a tech company needs to. We can afford to give it a higher growth rate because we know that they're better growers, and I guess not being so have a process, but not being so dogmatic that okay, well, if you're a value investor, only invest in, as I was saying, kind of stuff that's super cheap.
Yeah.
You need to have that understanding that actually there is a quality component to it. Maybe there's an asset that's so cheap that and such terrible quality, it's garbage, but it's so cheap that you can invest in it. You can get comfortable with that. But generally, having that quality filter, being able to look at assets in different ways, price up fair value in different ways, means that you're going to capture some of that quality.
So if I can maybe torture this analogy too much, it's a two-step process. First of all, figure out how high the bar is, and then secondly, find out how high your company can jump.
That's right.
And you want to find the highest clearance.
The highest. That's probably a really good way to think about it. The
Yeah.
highest probability of clearing that bar is the way we think about it.
Yeah.
So when the high jump bar, I don't even know what the world record is. When it's at the world record, the probability of clearance is low. At the start of the high jump, it's low.
Well, for me, it's like the NVIDIA example. I know we've used it a few times today, but it's a classic example of that. They report 145% increase in profit and 114% increase in revenue year on year, and the stock falls. Like, that is a world record, a jump attempt there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 100%.
Yeah.
It's and the reason is because markets are forward looking.
Yeah. So we asked if you could bring a stock to the table to close out this conversation that sort of illustrates what we've been speaking about here: low expectations, ability to clear the bar. So is there a particular stock you've bought today?
There is, and I guess the US market, everyone's talking about how overpriced it is, or that's been the kind of theme over the last kind of 6 months or so. But I brought a US name, and it's Nike. I'm a runner, so it's a stock that we've been looking at and put in the portfolio just at a small weight, and we'll probably continue to add to it in some of our portfolios. But the market is really presumed, or it seems the market's really presumed that Nike's going to struggle this year. It struggled a bit last year, and their main concerns are the potential reignition of inflationary pressures. That's eroding discretionary spending, except for runners like me who will just continue to buy running shoes no matter what. Obviously China, again, the consumer in China still being weak, and that's due to there's obviously the macro conditions, but also increased competition for a company like Nike as well in China, and globally. And also the lack of kind of new products, I guess, is one of the other reasons the market is thinking that maybe Nike's going to struggle. And, we really think that that's a little bit short-sighted. The current, the current cycle, the current downturn for Nike, it's been pretty painful. And consumers, you see it everywhere. Consumers have been a little bit weak. Consumer confidence in the US came out recently down a bit, but in Australia, as another example, obviously we spoke about China. Australia, consumer confidence has been fairly weak. Retail sales until recently have also been pretty weak. That's cyclical. We think that interest rate cuts and those sorts of things, even if many interest rate cuts don't come, the psyche of the consumer, it changes. I think the key risk around it is probably that if inflation does come back and the consumer really tries to pull back, that's probably a risk globally for Nike. But we believe that Nike's margins, they'll recover as they're doing a lot of cost cutting. There's probably a lot of fat in the business that they can carve out. Not dissimilar to what the Metas and Alphabets, maybe not to the same extreme, but back in end of 2022, they could suddenly just cut out a lot of fat out of the budget, which they did. And we think Nike can really do that. And we think that they gradually shift back from kind of the discounting cycle that they've been in with lots of their products to, being able to sell, their really pretty high quality products in the long run. Pardon the pun.